So, when you set up an out-of-office reply in your email, right?
Oh, yeah, the classic automated vacation responder.
Right, exactly. And it carries this built-in expectation of just a temporary absence. Like you turn it on before you leave, it sends that polite little message, and everyone just knows, okay, I'll hold my questions until Monday.
Right. The workflow might be paused, but the connection itself isn't broken.
Yeah, exactly. But today for our deep dive, we are looking at something completely different. We're looking at a translated document from 2024 that, honestly, it acts as a permanent out-of-office reply for the human mind.
That is a brilliant way to put it. I mean, it is the absolute definition of an intellectual and spiritual firewall.
Yeah.
It was authored by a figure named Xuefeng, and the translation was edited by someone named Qin. And the text we're analyzing is titled Confession of Lifechanyuan Guide 2024.
It's just wild.
It is. It's a staggering declaration of just total unavailability.
So, welcome to this deep dive, everyone. We're taking a look at a highly unique, intensely focused document that was actually provided by you, the listener.
And it's a great find.
Oh, it's amazing. If you have ever felt, completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information in the modern world,
Which I think is all of us, right?
the endless notifications, the exhausting pressure to have an informed opinion on absolutely every piece of breaking news, if you've felt that, this discussion is going to resonate deeply with you.
Definitely.
We are exploring what might literally be the ultimate do not disturb sign.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating piece of text. We're talking about a document that is incredibly brief. I mean, literally just a few paragraphs long.
Super short.
Right? But within that remarkably short space, Xuefeng does something that requires just an immense amount of audacity.
He does. He publicly declares exactly what he does not know. And then he categorically refuses to ever talk about it.
Period. End of discussion.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Because to understand the mindset of this guide, we first have to look at the literal geography of his expertise.
Right. What does he actually claim to know?
Exactly.
Ah,
He makes very specific claims about what he does know, which kind of perfectly sets the stage for what he is, quote-unquote, confessing to not know.
yeah.
In the text, Xuefeng explicitly states that he understands and knows the path from the mortal world to 3 highly specific destinations.
And the progression of these destinations forms the core of his cosmology. The timeline here is it's crucial.
Right. He lists them out.
Yes, in a strict hierarchical order. So first, you have the 1,000-year world.
Okay.
Second, the 10,000-year world. And finally, the ultimate destination, the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world.
Just think about those names for a second.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a society that is completely obsessed with, 5-year plans.
Or even quarter-to-quarter earnings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our modern anxieties are tied to what happens next week or next month. But Xuefeng, he's operating on a timeline of literal thousands of years.
And placing mortal anxieties against a 10,000-year backdrop, it instantly shrinks them.
Right. They just vanish.
Yeah. If your goal is navigating someone to a reality defined by millennia, the day-to-day fluctuations of the mortal world just become statistically insignificant,
It completely recontextualizes what's worth paying attention to.
Exactly. And it implies this massive evolution, suggesting that spiritual progression isn't just jumping from the mortal world straight into heaven.
Like it takes way stations.
Right. Different levels of purification or understanding to get there.
Which I think makes his actual confession make a bizarre kind of sense. Because apart from knowing the exact route to those 3 specific realms, he states, and I'm quoting here, "I confess that I lack knowledge in all other areas."
What's fascinating here is how we normally use the word confession in our daily lives.
It implies guilt, right?
Always. You
Yeah.
confess to a crime. You confess a shortcoming. You confess when you're exposed and forced to admit you did something wrong, kind of like a PR apology.
But Xuefeng is flipping that entirely on its head. He is framing his profound ignorance of worldly matters as a deliberate spiritual feature, not a bug.
Right, he isn't apologizing for not knowing about the stock market.
Or global politics or pop culture. Nothing.
He is subverting the whole concept to make this declaration of absolute unwavering focus. The confession is really a boundary line drawn in the sand.
It's like hiring a very specific kind of tour guide.
Okay, I like this.
So you hire this guy, and he literally only knows the exact step-by-step route to 3 highly exclusive hidden museums.
Right.
He knows every turn, every secret shortcut to get there. But if you stop him on the street and ask, hey, where is the nearest coffee shop? Or do you know where the restroom is? He just gives you a blank stare.
Yeah.
He doesn't know, And more importantly, he doesn't care to learn.
That is a perfect analogy, because a simple journey doesn't really require a dedicated guide, but a complex, multi-tiered cosmic journey across thousands of years. That absolutely does.
Yeah, you need an expert.
Right, and a guide for that journey cannot be distracted by looking for a coffee shop.
So if we accept that he is only guiding people to these highly specific cosmic destinations, it completely changes how he has to interact with his followers.
It changes
He
everything.
can't just have normal, everyday conversations anymore, which means we need to look at who he's actually talking to in this document and the strict rules of engagement he lays out for them.
Right. The text notes that this confession is intended to inform everyone, but he explicitly calls out a specific group of people, the Chanyuan Celestials.
Let's pause on that word. Celestials.
It's a big word.
It really is.
Yeah.
He isn't calling them students or disciples or just, followers. By addressing his community as celestials, he's implying they're already partly divine.
We're at least operating on a spiritual plane far above average humanity.
Right. So how does that elevate the dynamic of this document?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it radically raises the stakes of the communication. Like, if you are a beginner in a spiritual practice, your teacher might indulge your mundane questions. They might help you balance your meditation with your day job, right?
Sure. Like a beginner's grace period.
Exactly. But if you are addressed as a celestial, you are expected to have already shed a massive amount of that earthly baggage. You are actively preparing for the 1,000-year world.
So the guide's tolerance for triviality drops to absolute zero.
Zero. Because the audience is supposed to be beyond it already.
Wow. Okay, so I was reading through the text, and something really caught my eye in the typography of the translation itself.
The capitalization.
Yes, he gives this core ultimatum to these celestials. He states that anyone wishing to communicate with him must only discuss, and I'm quoting directly, life and life.
Right.
But the first life is written with a lowercase l, and the second life is in all caps, L-I-F-E.
The capitalization is doing incredible heavy lifting there.
It really is.
Yeah.
What does that signify to you?
It implies a deep philosophical dualism. It's this textual way of splitting one word into two entirely different domains that we normally just blur together.
So the lowercase life.
Points to biological everyday existence, the mechanics of breathing, eating, paying bills, and keeping the physical body functioning in the mortal world.
While uppercase life, in all caps, points to something transcendent.
Exactly. The eternal essence, the spiritual vitality required to actually reach that celestial island's continent.
But, what does a conversation strictly about uppercase life actually sound like?
It's abstract, right?
It's hard to even picture. It means you can't talk about your mortgage, you can't talk about interpersonal conflicts with your neighbors.
Unless it directly ties to your eternal soul's progression.
Right. So by demanding conversations only revolve around life and life, he forces every interaction to exist strictly on that specific axis.
Biological reality versus eternal progression.
And every other conversational topic is rendered completely invalid.
Completely off limits.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and where I have to push back a bit on this whole framework.
Go for it.
Because he follows up that demand by writing, apart from life and life, I do not comprehend the rest, nor do I wish to.
Nor do I wish to.
Yeah. That specific phrase. This isn't just about lacking bandwidth in his schedule. It's a deliberate intellectual quarantine. It's like putting up a firewall around your own brain.
It is.
But I have to ask, by shutting down absolutely all other topics, is this truly an act of profound spiritual discipline? Or is it just a massive, impenetrable mechanism of control?
Realistically, it achieves both simultaneously, which is the central tension of any intensely focused esoteric leadership.
Right.
From the perspective of pure ascetic discipline, if the mortal world is something to be transcended, engaging in its trivialities is a literal waste of eternal potential.
You have to cut the anchor rope so the balloon can rise.
Exactly. You can't ascend if you're bogged down.
But doesn't that just make him entirely unaccountable as a leader?
How do you mean?
Think about it. If a follower is suffering a real lowercase life crisis, say they are facing financial ruin or severe health issues or political oppression, he's basically saying, I don't care, I don't comprehend it.
Yeah, it's a harsh stance.
That sounds less like a spiritual guide and more like an absentee landlord. If you control the only topics allowed to be spoken, you never have to deal with the messy, painful reality of the people following you.
Well, the structural insulation it creates is undeniable.
Right.
By refusing to discuss anything outside of his specific spiritual cosmology, he preemptively protects himself from ever being proven wrong.
Ah, right. Because you can't fact-check the Elysium world.
Exactly. He doesn't have to debate current events, science, or earthly matters. He forces every follower to step into his world strictly on his terms, speaking his specific language of life and life.
I just can't shake the feeling that it's a massive cop-out. It creates this closed loop where his authority is absolute because the parameters of the conversation are entirely dictated by his ethereal map.
Right.
If you try to bring up a problem from the mortal world, it bounces right off the firewall. Sorry, I do not comprehend the rest.
Right, it's a very convenient deflection.
Incredibly convenient. It's easy for a leader to declare all worldly concerns, and potentially all criticism, as fundamentally out of bounds.
Consolidating power by dictating the parameters of reality is a known mechanism in these kinds of groups.
Yeah.
Yet if we look at it strictly within the logic of his cosmology, a guy who gets bogged down in the mud of the mortal world cannot effectively lead someone to the 10,000-year world.
So it's a functional requirement for him.
To him, the sheer ruthlessness of the boundary is an absolute prerequisite for the journey.
Okay, I see the internal logic, even if I find the human cost of that boundary, deeply unsettling.
It is unsettling. It's very cold.
The purity of focus requires a certain callousness to everything outside of it, which actually leads us perfectly to the justification he gives for these extreme boundaries.
Yes, this is where the text takes a really surprising turn.
Because we've established this massive ethereal map and the strict dualism of lowercase and uppercase life, but the why, the reason he gives for this quarantine, is where the text takes a wild, jarring tonal shift.
Completely. Because Xuefeng explains his reasoning by stating that avoiding other topics will, quote, minimize communication costs and greatly save time and energy.
Minimize communication costs. I literally had to read that sentence twice when I saw it.
It's so out of place.
It sounds like a memo from a middle manager trying to cut down on useless Zoom meetings, not a spiritual guide charting the cosmos.
This raises an important question, right? How do we reconcile the mystical language of the Elysium world with corporate bureaucratic phrasing like minimize communication costs?
Right. It's such a striking juxtaposition.
It reveals a highly pragmatic, almost utilitarian approach to spirituality. Energy and time are treated as strict currencies that cannot be wasted on earthly small talk.
So what does this all mean in practice? How does focusing only on life actually minimize these costs? Because I think about this in terms of my own daily life and the sheer mental exhaustion of just trying to keep up with the world.
Well, we can understand this by looking at the psychological concept of cognitive load and context switching.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Every single time you shift your attention from a deep, meaningful task to a trivial distraction, your brain expends actual metabolic energy to recalibrate.
Like changing gears in a car.
Yeah, exactly. And in our modern world, we context switch hundreds of times a day. You read a heavy political headline,
Right.
then you answer an email from your boss, then you check a text from your partner, then you try to sit down and do deep, focused work.
And by then, your brain is just fried.
The transition itself burns mental fuel.
The tax of divided attention. We are constantly paying it from the moment we wake up and look at our phones.
The cost is cumulative and it's exhausting. By applying this modern psychological concept to his spiritual framework, we see the actual mechanism of his mental firewall.
Oh, that makes sense.
Xuefeng is recognizing that spiritual energy and physical time are strict, quantifiable currencies. Every minute spent discussing something outside of life and life forces a context switch.
And that drains the specific energy required for navigating to the 10,000-year world.
Exactly.
So he is basically declaring intellectual bankruptcy on the entire system of modern context switching.
He's opting out completely.
The communication cost of mortal small talk is simply too high when your destination is eternal. And, even if we aren't trying to reach the Elysium world, that desire to just stop paying the tax of divided attention is deeply relatable.
Extremely relatable. We hemorrhage time and energy daily on topics we don't genuinely care about with people we barely know.
Driven entirely by social obligation or algorithmic manipulation on social media.
Right. Xuefeng's document is a radical, uncompromising opt-out of that entire social contract.
And he signs off this radical opt-out with a sentence that feels almost aggressively mundane. The text ends with, "Thank you for your understanding and cooperation."
Which is another phrase pulled straight from a customer service autoresponder or an HR memo.
Right. But let me challenge the tone of this closing, though.
Okay.
Is Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. Just a quirk of translation, like a bit of modern politeness creeping into a spiritual text. Or is this the firm, uncompromising sign-off of someone who has just shut a heavy metal door, locked it from the inside, and is telling the people on the outside to just deal with it?
Looking at the totality of the text, it is absolutely the slamming of the metal door.
You think so?
Definitely. It is not a request for a favor. A boundary is only as strong as its enforcement. By framing his ignorance as a deliberate confession, by limiting the vocabulary to life, and by citing communication costs, he has systematically removed any space for negotiation.
So thank you for your understanding and cooperation is basically saying the terms are set, the firewall is up, and there will be zero exceptions.
Yes, it is the permanent auto-reply.
Wow. So let's distill what we've unpacked today. We have taken a deep dive into this brief but incredibly dense 2024 text by Xuefeng, edited by Qin.
Right.
And it's a document that masterfully juxtaposes a massive cosmic journey, navigating from the mortal world through the 1,000-year and 10,000-year worlds, all the way to the Celestial Islands continent, with the deeply earthly, pragmatic desire to just save time and energy.
And it achieves this isolation by demanding that all interactions be restricted purely to the dual concepts of life and life, categorically rejecting all other earthly topics to eliminate cognitive load and minimize the cost of communication.
So as you listen to this, try to connect this back to your own life. You might not be a guide leading anyone to the 10,000-year world.
Really not.
Right. And you might not have followers called Chanyuan Celestials. But there is a strangely powerful lesson tucked inside this esoteric text about the unapologetic protection of your own focus.
There's a bizarre kind of freedom found in openly admitting what you don't know and simply refusing to engage with it.
Oh, absolutely.
Just imagine the sheer amount of energy you would save if you stopped pretending to care about the noise outside your chosen path.
It's the ultimate antidote to information overload. The sheer courage to say, I do not comprehend the rest, nor do I wish to.
It's liberating in a way.
It really is. So, we want to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over as you go about your day. Think back to that absolute, permanent, out-of-office firewall we talked about at the very beginning.
Right.
If you had to issue your own public confession today, if you had to put up a sign declaring your total ignorance on everything in the world, except for one single topic that you are completely, utterly devoted to, what would your version of life and life be?
What is the one path you know so well that you are willing to let the rest of the world fade away so you can walk it?
Think about what you would put behind that permanent firewall. Until next time, keep diving deep.